everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of Action Items, where we give you actionable takeaways related to all things supply chain. I am your host, Dyci Sfregola, and I'm excited to have you join us today. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're back, thank you for coming back. Thank you for joining. As always, let us know where you're joining from in the comments, and we always like to see where everyone is joining from. So this episode is brought to you by Nugent Architects, a supply chain transformation consulting agency helping businesses navigate the complex world of technology and supply chain management. The NGA team of supply chain experts works with clients in all phases of the implementation lifecycle, from initial planning to post-implementation support. This includes things like ERP tool selection, project management, and business transformation road mappings. To learn more about how NGA can support your business as you grow and scale, please visit nugentarchitects.com for more information and to schedule a free discovery call with a team member. So today we are talking all things trucking and transportation with the one and only Mrs. Hope from HD Drayage. So we can go ahead and bring her up.
Hi, DC.
Hello. Logistically, yes, CEO Logistically Speaking Online. You've got all the stuff going on when it comes to logistics and trucking, but not even from a hustle perspective, from an educational perspective.
Absolutely.
Which is what I love. I always say reach, reputation, education.
Absolutely.
So I give the folks a rundown of everything that you do, especially since we're focusing this on logistics and trucking. I mean, it's great to have more follow-ups, resources, and you like regularly all the time across platforms are sharing stuff.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Hope Allen, formerly Hope White. I am the CEO of HD Drayage and Container Services. We are an asset-based trucking company out of Metter, Georgia. We have about 12 trucks, 12 drivers. We pull out of the Savannah, Charleston, and Jacksonville ports. And we support large big box retail clients with moving their containerized cargo out of the ports to their final destination, which is distribution centers. I'm also the CEO of Logistically Speaking Online, which is a C-suite educational platform designed to help C-suite executives transition out of corporate world into the entrepreneurial world of logistics and trucking and transportation. Been doing that now just over 6 years and do pretty good with it and love what I do.
That's great. That's great. Sure. So I know that we were just talking before we went live about some of the conversations that I've been having with people over the last couple of weeks. It almost always seemed kismet and destiny that the conversations leading up to the show are always like in that month about the topic. Because these are actually scheduled pretty far out to make sure that very busy people like yourself can accommodate their schedule. Or maybe it's just that I'm subconsciously attracting all of the conversations.
The energy
about, the law of attraction. But what we were talking about, right before we started is how I've been having a couple of conversations with different brands and distributors that are thinking, okay, do I need a 3PL? Do I need a fulfillment warehouse? How do I handle the freight forwarding? I'm importing from this other country. What does that look like? And a lot of times it's so much that people just outsource it, which can make sense. It can make sense for you to outsource it. And since we have Dubai, Tennessee, Zimbabwe, Colombia, and Chicago, so we've got people from a little bit all over, just understanding the audience and what they might be thinking about. So maybe we have some people importing, maybe we have some people exporting, things like that. So I was actually, speaking of Savannah, I was actually down in Macon yesterday talking about some truck logistics stuff from Savannah up, 75. So for those that are familiar with Georgia. So the first action item, we can go ahead and get into action items because I don't always get to all of them. So to make sure we get to all of them, what are the different options if I'm moving product? If I'm importing raw materials, I have my whatever that might look like, what are the different logistical options for getting my product or
Your
material
brand.
from point A to point B, or
Yeah,
C, all the stops in between.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're a small brand getting started, you first need to understand that logistics/trucking is probably your highest cost to your budget. It typically supersedes payroll, right? So if you're not ready to take on and absorb all of those costs, right, you definitely want to seek and outsource your logistics and transportation. So some of those options are, of course, a third-party logistics service like a freight broker or a freight forwarder. A freight broker negotiates the movement of the freight between you, the brand, and then the trucking company itself. Or a small fulfillment warehouse where you can lease a small amount of space for your products. And then that space can also provide trucking and transportation services as well for a negotiated cost. That's my recommendation for a small brand getting started, just until you can build up a large enough budget to be able to absorb some of those costs. Because when you have your own internal logistics services as a small brand, you're taking on the insurance of the truck, the maintenance of the truck, the fuel of the truck, the payroll
All of
of the
the
driver.
compliance and
Yeah,
regulations
all of
with
the
the
compliance.
Department of Transportation, all of
Absolutely.
that.
All of the licensing and things of that nature. So your better cost budget is probably outsourcing to a freight brokerage or possibly a third party logistics service, which has fulfillment as well as trucking services in-house.
Now, does that change? Does your idea and recommendation about that change if you have maybe a hyper local model?
No, it does not
Okay.
change. Trucking services are going to be expensive, whether it's local or OTR, or which is over the road. I'm finna talk in trucking terms here. But
We love our acronyms in supply chain. We love our acronym. If
okay.
it doesn't have an acronym, it's not actually a thing. And it's better if not every company using the same acronym and it's not industry standard. Those are the best.
Sure. So yeah, those costs are not going to change if it's local or if it's long haul trucking, or if your business is outside of where your source for logistics is going to be. Cost for logistics is just going to be high across the board.
Okay. Now I wrote a note, freight broker and forwarder, warehousing and truck. Okay. So if I'm a small brand, or a small company and I don't want to have that in-house, what if I just call up some trucking companies? Is it worth it to do that? Because I hear a lot about brokers, and we were at the logistics summit. People were like, "Ooh, brokers."
Yeah. And listen,
people think that like, I'm going to go through the broker and things are going to be better.
Easy. Yeah. No. So you definitely, when you're calling around for your brand, you need to kind of understand what your needs are before you speak with someone, so you can understand what they're going to offer you. So for example, you were mentioning someone before the call, that had some type of travel items. You would need to know like how often these items are going to move, what's your quantity, right? Where it's going to move to, how consistently it's going to move, so that when that trucking company gives you a quote, it's accurate to what you actually need and not just a big umbrella to maybe a brand like Walmart, if you will. So you would need to know those things. A freight broker could help you find the logistics services for those, and possibly the warehousing services for those as well, for a lower cost. But keep in mind, freight brokers do add their commission on top of that. So you may be paying an additional premium there as well. Right.
So essentially you accept that you're going to pay the premium, but you don't have to spend the time to go through and have
all these different
15 conversations, figure all that out, etc.
No, you don't do that. And I recommend small brands, to be honest, right? And this is going to be a dig here for my smaller logistics companies, but I recommend smaller brands partner with smaller logistics companies that's getting started, and that they can grow together.
Right.
And their cost is going to meet where your budget needs to be at as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about completely brand new logistics companies, but someone who maybe has 5 to 7 years in your area with doing and completing logistics services, whether it's warehousing and or trucking,
Mm-hmm.
that can assist you. Yeah.
Okay. I had a question and I lost my question.
Okay.
But I have another question.
Write it down while we
I'm going to keep the questions going. So how do I? Oh, that is. I'm going to go back to that question. That was a very important question. It just came to mind. You said think about some of the things and the requirements.
Yes.
In the spirit of action items in our show being very specific, what are those things? So some things that come to mind, like obviously if you're moving frozen yogurt,
yes,
you need a temperature control.
You need to understand the temperature.
But what are some you mentioned? So temperature,
quantity, weight of the product is big, right?
Weight and dimensions.
Yes. How much of
how you're moving the product?
Yeah. How are you moving? If it's going to be dry, is it going to be refrigerated? Do you require a full truckload, which is typically a 53-foot dry van, right? Mm-hmm. Or do you need a less than truckload, which is half of a 53-foot dry van, 28 feet, which could be a box truck in some regards. So you need to kind of understand how many of your goods you're moving. Is it going to be palletized? Is it floor loaded? Does it require bracing? Is it going to shift during transit? Is the driver going to need to assist you with loading and unloading, right? And then time to destination for your receiver. Where is it going, right? What's the distance there? So these are some of the things you need to kind of understand before you start reaching out to trucking companies. You need to have all these answers together.
Yes. I love how this just always goes back around to how all of the functions of supply chain and product design, movement, etc., are connected. Because as you're talking about bracing, how is it going to move? Are you going to palletize it? All of that stuff should be considered in product design and innovation way before you even get to the point of I need to call a logistics provider. Because by that time, you don't want to, and I'm sure you see it. I see it all the time. I hear about it all the time. Oh yeah, we didn't think about how that was going to move, and the product was damaged.
It shifted in the load.
We didn't package it the right way, or we didn't think about the movement and the vibration of the truck from point A to point B, and we wrote off millions of dollars of product.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need to understand your product when it moves in transit. Some smaller trucking companies don't know to ask that. They just know that the load needs to probably be braced, but they don't know if your product is going to shift. Right. So you giving your logistics provider that insight up front will definitely help you reduce your damages and costs there on the back end.
Right. Because I think that it also helps. And this is kind of a sneak peek into the final action item, which is just like monitoring that performance. You have to have something to start with. You have to agree with your logistics service provider of what is going to mean success for both parties, and not just the shipper telling the logistics company
come pick this up and take it here, right? No, give me some little bit more meat to it, and that's like I said, that's two ways as well. If you when you're seeking out a good 3PL, they should have a good bit of questions for you as well that go around what we initially discussed, what those action items are, what you need to know about the product. So it's kind of twofold there.
Okay, so that's a good, if you are a shipper, and we talked about small companies, not necessarily new companies, but even if it is a new company, are they asking you the right questions? So do they have the right answers to your questions, but also are they asking you questions that you would expect that someone that is knowledgeable and knows what they're doing would ask?
I would say for a small brand seeking out a 3PL or another logistics service, right, that they source an individual who's going to provide them almost like an intake form. Just as their goods were manufactured, when you get your goods manufactured, there's an intake form there for your manufacturer, right? The logistics company needs to have something similar in nature, and also you need to understand if that logistics company and provider is licensed, insured, and bonded for your product as well.
Okay, so I have a quick question. that just came to mind,
Okay.
and it's going to be like 21 questions today.
All right, come on.
So, and it's like I said, it's because I've been getting a lot of these questions over the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks. So, like,
Mhm.
let's share the answers with the world.
Yeah.
It's not secret knowledge. It's not IP. Don't need anyone to sign an NDA.
Yeah.
We want everyone to be successful. But I decide to go with a warehouse who has relationships with trucking partners. I decide to go with a 3PL who is going to manage all of that for me.
Mhm.
I need the data though. Very often, the
Yes.
shipper, the brand, is responsible, however, for the of is this really the best option? So don't just leave it all on your 3PL or your warehouse partner to just say, oh, yeah, they're giving me the best and they're doing it the best. You have to have that data and also be tracking it yourself as well, because you know what your demand is. You know how the product and customer behaviors are changing. So you have to give that information to your 3PL so that it's this two-way data thing.
Yeah.
And
That needs to happen.
Exactly. So I talk to a lot of customers and I say, oh, well, CH Robinson is doing that for you. Outbound and inbound. Yes. Okay. Well, where is the data? How are you tracking that? Oh, we just like send them a bill.
No.
Or they just send us a bill and we pay for it.
No.
So what should that look like?
So your brand should definitely, one, ask the 3PL that they're sourcing, give them some of their track record, like give them some of their previous clients and if they can share some of the reports and data that they've shared to their clients, right? You definitely shouldn't go into a 3PL blind with, oh, well, they're small, they're giving me the best cost, so the cost is going to lead the way. You need someone who has experience in handling your goods, right? And then set those expectations and those metrics of how that data is going to be reported back to you from your 3PL. We're still in Excel world in supply chain, right? And so maybe that works for you for your small business, but really when you get into the nuts and bolts of things, what damages are being assessed? How are you measuring that inside of your warehouse? How are you keeping up with that? How are you keeping up with my inventory? Like what type of reporting system are you using?
So that kind of goes back to also, it is Excel world, but you have babies first WMS.
Yeah, baby.
Babies first TMS. Like
TMS,
you're not just calling up your best friend that happens to be, how are you organizing the loads? How are you making sure that all of this is optimized? So that's my digital supply chain system plug. As always, I will always find a way to put that back in.
Yeah. So you definitely want to, as a brand, be asking those questions. And again, if you're small, you don't know to ask these things until you need those things.
Right. And until you're on the phone with someone like me and I'm asking, oh, what is this metric? And you're like, oh, I need that.
I need that. Yes,
you do.
That's
you
correct.
do. You're probably spending a lot of money. I know because with a lot of the small brands, before we start working with them, I'll always make an order just to see how long it takes, to see how the product arrives, etc. And I remember once I got a box, it was like this much product and this much other stuff. And
I can't stand it.
Call your warehouse partner right now.
I can't stand it, right? And that's another thing. That's a good call out there too. And maybe that's on your action item 3. But you do want, as a brand, right, a smaller brand, you do want to partner with a 3PL that operates lean, which means reduces your usage in cartage,
material weight,
all of that. You want somebody that operates lean. You don't want anybody overusing boxing and things of that nature, because those are your costs that are going to be assessed back to your business.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have a question about best practice to de-risk. Let's go on to the second action item, because first we're talking about the benefits. So of the different models, the benefits. So we said, it could be really expensive, but what is the trade-off for that being expensive? I imagine it's control.
Quality.
Quality. Okay.
Quality and control. Yes. When it's a lot more costly, and let me just put this out here. High paying logistics services does not always guarantee quality.
The best
right?
quality. Yeah.
Right. But
I need to get my glass. I was trying to figure out why I couldn't see the comments. I don't have my glasses on.
Oh, but it most might surely guarantee insurance, right? And good data, right? And so the benefit of using a very experienced 3PL is saving you on your product, of course, saving you on your costs in the back end of things, and then helping you be able to expand and grow from there because you're getting those dollars back into your business because you're not losing as much product with an inexperienced facility.
Right. And I wanted to call this one out because as you mentioned, logistics transportation. When I first got into supply chain, I was actually working for a 3PL that catered to small businesses. And during training, that's what they said, the logistics and transportation is always one of the top 3 expense line items within a company.
Always.
And I always preach this, get out of supply chain as a cost center perspective.
Yes.
And I get it. The logistics and transportation cost is high, but it affects the customer experience so
much better. Yeah. Yes.
So you can't just say, is it more expensive for us to use a warehouse or a freight broker or do it in-house or go with the more expensive company, whatever that might look like? You have to also weigh the benefits of that.
And how it's going to affect your customer base.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking quality, one of those things very specific, error rates.
Yeah.
How often are people getting the wrong product?
Yes.
Are they getting a late product, especially if you have something temperature controlled? How often is it getting there melted and gross and stinky?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I think this is probably the biggest thing too. Won't say any big brand names on here because I'm going to out. But there are a few big brands that like to put items into ship to customer status, right? So when you're working with a smaller brand, how accurate are the ship to customer statuses being updated to where it's actually moving to your customer and not actually sitting on the dock, right? You need to kind of understand that what their labor pool looks like and actually getting your orders out on time. That's probably one of your measurables there as well, that we see in your larger big brands where they says, oh, it's shipped and you don't get it till 4 or 5 days later.
Right.
That's going to affect your customer service, right? Yes. That's going to affect your feedback on your promise to your customer to get their product delivered to them on time. The other thing you want to look at is if you choose to scale with this 3PL, what's their threshold of being able to take on more items or possibly a promo item? Let's just say you do a sale. Can they really take on doing that sales goods for you and getting those items out to your customer timely to whatever policy or whatever promo you put out?
So I'm going to go ahead and ask Nicole, I'm going to go ahead and ask Nicole to just throw up the other action items because I have things that I want to talk about. And I'm like, we should get into the action item. Let's just throw it out there.
Am I throwing you off?
We can just have the conversation. No, it's fine. Let's let it flow. Okay, so we outlined the risk. Someone asked about risk, so we'll revisit that. And then, but I wanted to talk about performance. So that's why I said, let's go ahead. So the other thing is to talk about performance. So the reason why this comes up is because just this week, I was talking to a customer about their distribution partner. And we were going through the order to cash process and the procure to pay process. And the amount of time it's supposed to take. Within their agreement, they're supposed to be able to give an order and it is fulfilled within 24 to 48 hours and then shipped to the customer. And there is notification of that. You're supposed to be able to go into this dashboard, et cetera. And they told me that 48 hours sometimes is 2 weeks. It's sometimes a week.
I'm sorry.
So at that point, we talked about contracts. We talked about having both parties be on the same page. But as these things, which is why you need the data to be tracking how much money and time, which is money, are you losing from customer corrections, sending out free product, things being late. We'll give you a credit because that was late, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't have the visibility to that data, you don't have anything to arm you with to go back and say, hey,
you owe me for this,
partner, this isn't working out. Because and what I hear often is, oh, we're in a contract with them until this date. We're in a contract with them until, yes, but if they are in breach of contract, you are not in contract with them and tied to them until this date. But you also can't just go and say our product is always late. What is always?
How
often is that happening?
So today, so I also, and to speak to that, so I see smaller brands, and this is in logistics and trucking as well, taking on template agreements, template contractual agreements, things they find online, and then they just change the name at the top and make it adhere to them. You don't want to do that when it comes to your very personal goods that are going to be shipped to customers. You definitely want to pull in a corporate attorney or business attorney of some sort, contract attorney, to make sure that your agreement with whatever 3PL is customized to the specifications of what you need from them, so that you can hold them accountable for those things. I do see that quite often. And so being that you just pulled a random template offline, you can't go back and hold them accountable for items that ship 2 weeks later versus the 48 hours that was originally verbally agreed upon.
Exactly. Right. Okay. So since we've already put the action items up, there is a question about 10 minutes ago about the best practice to de-risk this. And I don't remember what this is. If you will share again,
let's go back.
We'll go back to that. And then there's another comment. Spot on. RTOs are increasing, and all of what you spoke about are stressors, contributors, and choke points. How can we solve for this?
That's monitoring that data that you're not asking for, monitoring when your stuff is damaged, when it's not going out, right? Going back to your vendor and saying, hey, how do we fix this? What needs to happen? Is there something on my end? Is there something on your end? And then also do site visits. This is the other thing. Small brands give their product to someone and then don't ever go back and check on it again. You need to do random site visits to your location to see how your product is being stored, see how it's being handled, right? Invest a few days in being in that space to see just what is going on with your product and how they're handling their business with your goods.
And I hear a lot of people doing that with their contract manufacturers, or the picking and excuse me, not the picking and packing. It loses me now, which is, I just translated an Italian phrase in English and it makes no sense.
Okay. It's okay.
But the point is that I see brands do this, and I hear them doing this a lot with their manufacturers. Because which obviously you want the quality of the product, or they follow.
You forget it on the distribution side,
but not as much on the distribution side. They're not going back and doing cycle counts. They're not, and the logistics partner is not doing it either.
Inventory management, they're not doing it at all. It's just your goods is in there. You don't know what's there, and you don't know how they're handling. So scheduling site tours, site visits, that's your right as having, you being that customer. If you have someone that says, oh, we don't want you in our facility, then that's not the client.
That's a red flag.
That's a red flag, baby. Don't take your stuff in there, right? You just don't want to do that. And then you also want to make sure, again, if it's like a specialty good, like you said, temperature control, you want to know how they're handling that data. And is it according to the regulations that you're upheld to by the federal government when it comes to transporting food products and things of that nature at a temperature control? You want to make sure they're doing the same thing inside of the facility.
Right. Okay. There are some comments coming in. Great point of view. Excellent point about visiting distribution center. So action item that didn't come up. That is something that you can do now. If you have not scheduled a visit with your distribution center, your warehousing partner, go do it. That is, if you take nothing else away from this, go do that.
Sure.
Okay. Should a company have a full-time person to manage 3PL, or can the role be an additional duty to supply chain professional? Depends.
If you're a small brand, I would tell you to have an operations manager that does handle your logistics and partners with the 3PL. You do that does not need to be something you as the owner of the company needs to be handling as well. It's too much. I wouldn't recommend that. But yeah.
Yes. Even if you are, it's one of those things, can I, but should I?
Yes.
Even if I am the best logistics person ever, and that is why I started this company.
Yeah.
That does not mean that you should be managing it. Tempest, who I know works in, she's in freight and moving product, and she's an account manager. So she's talking to shippers all the time.
Yeah.
He says full-time person. I say it depends. And I say it depends, and this is why.
Yeah.
SKU complexity. What is your product doing? Volume. Now, do you need a full-time person to manage just the 3PL?
No, I think you need
but you do in inventory, supply chain, movement in general. That is a specialized skill.
Yeah, I think you need someone specifically for the movement of your goods, which is all inclusive of all things logistics.
Inbound,
that's
outbound,
inventory management, damage, RTOs or RTVs, return to vendors. You need someone handling all of that, not you. Your brain is not for that. You're already handling enough with the manufacturing side and the customer engagement side of that. You're probably trying to do marketing as well for your company. The logistics side is just as robust as the marketing side of the business. So if not heavier. So you definitely want somebody to be able to handle that piece.
Yes. And then following up on that, should a company have a full-time person? It's not just cousin Betty that
can we go down that hole? Can we go down that hole?
I opened the door, so I'm going to let you walk through.
No, we definitely don't want our cousin them, managing the logistics of our brand, of our baby, of our product that we've taken the time to seek source a very good manufacturer for our products. We don't want our cousin handling our that's the end point, that point, the touch point, which is our customer is going to get that.
I mean, unless your cousin is like
we love your cousin.
we love a logistics expert cousin.
We love it. But if your cousin them been driving trucks all day, right, all their lives, they're not prepared for logistics services, right? That's a totally different thing there. So you definitely want to hire and seek and source someone who is familiar and experienced in logistics, supply chain, 3PL services as a whole, from a budget perspective, a compliance perspective, a customer service perspective, and then understanding time management and things of that nature.
Yes, and knowing what questions to ask. And I think we get back to the cost and what people are, we can't afford. Supply chain is a cost center. Let's just minimize cost. So if we can pay this person this much money to manage it, but that person also doesn't know to ask for the data.
Yeah.
So you're spending less on their salary.
Sure.
But you're spending, like, the money's going to come from somewhere.
It's got to come from somewhere. Listen, say that. Listen, I always hear people say, I can't afford to pay a regular person. You can't afford not to. Right. That experience is going to help you grow and evolve your business so much quicker than you having a family member that you can throw a few dollars to. Right. And that person who is more experienced, more trained, does not have an emotional setting towards your business. They're more business oriented and they want to see the growth of the business. Right. And so they're going to put in more talent and knowledge and expertise versus emotion.
Right. And it's so important, since as we're talking about that, if you are trying to figure out who you need, what that job description should look like, that you need to source product, move product, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's okay. And this is also because I am specifically thinking about my personal situation. So take this with a grain of salt, please. And let me see, this comment might be right along what I'm about to say. In smaller companies, you wear many hats. In bigger ones, there is a different department under ops for each
Mm-hmm.
thing, but I believe the entire department should be rotated to learn all the relevant skills to understand all aspects of the complicated logistics supply chain department. That is along the lines of what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Logistics and supply chain is a lot.
Yes, it
It's
is.
a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
like, I grew up in the planning world.
Yeah.
I have a whole list.
Waving and planning, or just planning? Waving.
Supply chain planning.
Supply
So
chain.
demand planning, production plan, like all the planning
Yeah.
stuff. And I
Mhm.
know that stuff like kind of happens
Yeah.
after the plan is done. I know stuff happens. I
Sure.
know there's a freight for. I know there's a container somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
not qualified to run your logistics. I'm not. I am now. If you ask me, if you bring me on to run your supply chain,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that is my weak point. I
Right.
know enough to
Right.
know that's my weak point. I'm going to tell you, you're still going to have to pay a logistics consultant.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, hey, it's supply chain, because there are so many different functions.
Yeah.
And there are people, I personally think, that have decades of experience and have been
Mhm.
exposed to everything.
Mhm.
But if you've just been doing it for a little bit, you might know enough to say what the acronyms are, but there is so much involved.
So many different components.
And it
Yeah.
affects your customer so much. It affects your
Mhm.
brand. It affects your ability to scale. If
Yeah.
you're getting funding and fundraising, it affects all of that. Do
Sure.
not skip on this resource.
Yeah. Sure.
Make sure you know that logistics person, it can't be Cousin Betty. It
Can't be. It
cannot be.
It can't be John John.
We're gonna keep
John
saying
John
that.
can't do it.
That is someone that you pay the money for.
Yes.
You pay the money
Yes.
for that person, because
Absolutely.
there are so many blind spots.
Yes.
And there are so many stories of brands and companies
Yes.
losing so much money on that side because they drastically underestimate everything that is involved with it.
I agree.
So that is our soapbox.
I agree.
Around
Sat on that one a long time.
that is our soapbox on that. Did we ever get? I don't think I ever saw what the risk was, the risk question. But we do have a couple of other questions. First, do you imagine having a robust tech stack reduces operational complexity and helps with digitizing all events and touch points? That's one. And the other one, in the UK, supply chain managers manage all the end-to-end supply chain after the PO is raised. This includes customs, 3PLs, freight, and distribution. Is it the same in the US? I think it depends on the size of the company.
Yeah, it depends.
That's an easy one. Then we'll go back to that one.
It depends on the size of the company for that, Paul Sims. And then back over to where it says, do you imagine having a robust tech stack, Yeah, a lot of companies have already started implementing those things. But we were talking about smaller brands. I don't think, now I have not priced any AI or any type of robotics, right? But I don't see smaller brands being able to afford that coming right in immediately for the services that they're needing. That's more of your bigger box, big retail, big logistics providers that have that technology inside of their spaces.
And now I do to the point of the, I guess, barrier to entry from a cost perspective for the technology.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, there are a lot of startups and a lot of different companies that are starting to offer a small business product
for AI.
That barrier to entry.
Okay.
So they are out there.
Yeah.
The risk is that many of them are startups. So what I've personally seen, and I won't name any specific ones, the promise of what they will offer is great.
Right.
What they're actually offering might be good enough for a smaller brand because it's better than Excel. Or it's better than nothing, but like it's kind of slow. You will get great customer service because you are one of a few customers. But if you're working with a startup or if you're working with some of these smaller tech companies that have the lower price tag, it's like we talked about everything else, you have to know what your requirements are and really be able to understand and like ask them, how much runway do you have?
Yeah, because a lot of
I've talked to brands who
yeah,
were scrambling to go back to what they were doing before because the
yeah.
startup, it is a fact of life.
Yeah, because a lot of those startup tech companies, their services are a la carte. So you just adding on different things as you go through the business
Mhm.
with them. They promise you this package up front because I also looked into it. And then as you go, oh well, I need this. Oh well, that's an additional
Yes.
$9.95 a month. Oh well, I need this. Oh well, that's an additional $29.95 a month. Well, look here, can I just get this right here? How much for all of this, right? And
Right.
so you do have those companies, but just understand that those additional services that you'll need, and that's why DC has pointed out, it's very important to understand what you need up front so they can give you one price up front if you choose to go that route.
And there are companies that specialize in that. How do I do this?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah, there are companies that specialize in helping
What's
you figure out.
New Gen Architects is one of those
Yes.
companies that help you figure out what those services are you need up front before you approach your potential vendors.
And once you start talking to vendors that in the tech space to help
Sure.
you ask the right questions
Yeah,
and to
absolutely.
make sure that the answer you're getting actually makes sense. There are many
Yeah,
times where I've talked to a company, we want to tell you about this product. We know
yeah,
that you're in the digital supply chain space. What do you
mhm.
think about our product? Well, what does your product do? It's an API.
It's an
What does
API.
your product do?
And
What
what
is,
else? What's
well,
next?
what problem are you solving within the
Yeah,
supply chain?
yeah.
And one of the things that I really focus on
Mhm.
is the founding team as the person that I'm talking to. Do
Yeah.
they have all of the experience that we talked about was important for your
Mhm.
person that has to run your
Yeah.
logistics? Do
Yeah.
they have that experience? Do they
Yeah.
actually know what it is?
Mhm.
Or is log tech just really sexy right now?
Yeah.
Or able to get some funding during the pandemic?
You don't want my comment on that log tech being sexy. I'm gonna just be quiet on that one.
But if you want the raw version, you can follow Hope on
Yeah,
Instagram.
because I'll probably get on live and just go in about log tech right now.
If you want anything raw, unfiltered, just Instagram.
Yeah, just follow me on Instagram. You're gonna get the truth.
But yes, the short answer is obviously having a robust tech stack will
Yeah,
support that.
sure.
But also what robust means
Uh-huh.
will depend on what you're trying to accomplish,
Yeah.
what you already have.
Yeah.
And I mean, I talk to a lot of small brands and small companies who do have really smart operational people who
Mhm.
have great Excel models
Mhm.
and the data is clean and they have some dashboard system that their warehouse gave them,
Yeah.
and that warehouse company has a decent tech stack. It's not
Yeah.
a lot of volume,
Mhm.
it's not a lot of SKU complexity, it's dry, it doesn't expire. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
fine with your Excel model. You've got 20 SKUs. That's
Mhm.
it. You
Yeah.
got 40 customers, 20
Yeah.
suppliers.
Yeah.
What's a robust tech stack look like? It
What
looks
does it?
very differently
Yeah.
than a company that is doing, that has 15 different SKUs there. They have different packaging
Mhm.
and different delivery regulations because it's in retail versus a specialty store versus D2C online. It,
Right.
it really depends on what that robust tech stack actually looks like.
Right. Right.
Okay, so let me see. I think
You got some pitches over here about log tech.
that's oh my goodness, everything just got really busy. I think we have time for do we have time for log tech is sexy, smiley face. um let's see. This is a big one from Paul. We don't have time to answer
Yeah.
that, but we will go back and am I making a promise? Am I putting my foot in my mouth? I'm going to go back and answer this question in the comments for
Yeah.
sure. I see it's a LinkedIn comment, so I can do it from LinkedIn afterward.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read the question out loud for everybody.
Okay.
And then everyone can come to the comments for the answer. Do
Okay.
you have an end-to-end automate supply chain platform to help? Oh, thanks, Nicole. To help provide all the connectors and visuals to manage from design to inbound delivery to export distribution returns in the US? We are looking for a case study as we have developed such a platform in this space along with automated customs covering. Do you guys get involved in this kind of development at all? milestone360.com. Let's see. I'm skeptical, Paul. But if you say that you've developed it, I am open to be proven
I
right.
know that's right, because I want to listen to that one. Okay.
Mark your calendars. Next show is May 12th. I don't remember who's going to be on, but it'll be fun because it's always fun.
Sure.
And we will have a conversation with Paul. Maybe we will see what Paul has going on. We're going to be here 10 a.m. May 12th, 10 a.m. Eastern. Thank you everyone for joining. Hope great conversation. Thank you for all of the knowledge you have bestowed upon us.
You're welcome.
I hope that you guys were actually taking notes. If you didn't, it's recorded. So go back and watch it again. But do the stuff we said. So yeah. Save some money, save some time, save some headache. Goodbye.
Bye.